So officially welcome and thanks for joining us. So the PD title here is Google Drive Hygiene, tidying up your Google Drive. The original concept for this happened long before any of the COVID stuff happened, and it kind of had this idea like, hey, what if we do a PD on organizing your drive? And originally my idea was, as you may have seen in the survey, originally my idea was, hey, let's do this PD with time for you to organize, and I and some other people can be there to answer some questions. But then this happened and we have to do this virtually, but I think I'm going to address everything that was mentioned in the survey. All right, and so and if I don't, I have built in some time at the end to get your specific questions, okay? And I'll timestamp those too, so you can skip to the answer to your question if you, all right. So remember to sign in. Here's what we are gonna do today. I'm gonna give you 5 tips, just 5 tips. And I think actually even that very first one is gonna be the one that's gonna be the game changer if you haven't, if you have a little bit of a mess. But 5 tips to organize your Google Drive. The reason for this is to tidy things up and just spark some joy. If you've seen the Netflix show there, the reference there. But things might be easier to find after this hour together. And here's how you know if you got it. All right, so the self-assessment. If 55 minutes from now your Google Drive is a little bit better organized, then we'll call this a mission accomplished, okay? And all right, so here we go. First thing is create a folder for each of the hats that you wear. So you probably have lots of responsibilities at school, right? Not the least of which is all the classes you teach, right? And so in your head right now, just think about what those hats are, right? So, and I want you to narrow it down to the top 5 categories that you deal with the most. At least 5, feel free to add more, but on a little sheet of paper, maybe, jot down what your top 5 categories are, okay? So here's an example. The classes you teach, maybe committees you're a part of, your different positions, if you're an instructional partner and things like that. So here's 5 that were common to me, right? So one might be the different classes that I teach. So I had multiple sections of English 10 for many years. And so, English 10 would be one of my priority categories. And then another class that I would have 1 or 2 sections of, so let's say Avid. Department things, so like common assessments, things like that, like information from the department chair. PD resources, so I would attend a PD like this one and get like the PowerPoint, and so I'd like to keep them in one place. So PD resources is another one. Logistics, so maybe there have been new hires, and so there's a new director, things like that, okay? And then the one I always add this one, okay? So junk or archive or miscellaneous, a catch-all for everything else, all right? So I'm gonna ask you to take 2 minutes here and either jot these down on a piece of paper, or let's participate, let's brainstorm together and put down 5 hats, 5 categories, or 5 possible folders in the chat, okay? So I'm just gonna give you 2 minutes to kind of brainstorm this, all right? So go ahead and type in what those 5 categories might be, your top 5. These are gonna be the basis for what some people like to call their master folders. So it would be the folders that you deal with most often. So you don't get rid of all your other things. You just have these 5 that, most everything else falls into one of those 5, all right? And as you'll see, if you can arrange that, there is not even a need for an archive or a junk folder, as I'll show you, okay? But it's always nice to have a folder that's junk. And actually in my Google Drive, I call it Organize Me. Oh, excuse me, Organize Me. And so I just, I know that whatever's in there needs to be organized, and it hasn't been organized in like, 6 years. So, okay. So we're going to move on. So you might also create one for the school year, right? And so, for 2020, 21, right? And so new things will go in there. Some people like doing it that way. Okay. All right. So then, right, you're going to have to decide on a consistent naming convention for these. I like to use numbers and all caps. I think it just looks cleaner in all caps. So I like doing it that way. And so if you notice the numbering convention that I use is 001, right? So 001, 002, 003, 4, etc. And this works for further organizing within the folders, right? And so if you want to experiment and try to experiment in your Google Drive, if you want to open up a separate tab or a separate window, you can go ahead and create those 5 folders and put them in the order that you want. So probably at the top would be the thing you're going to be opening up the most, right? So for me, I would typically have 4 or more sections of English 10, so I would always be opening that one up, right? And then the other class that I taught, there's always that, and then something else like an English 9 or an Avid or something like that. And so, so that's my priority, right? My priority list there, all right? So if you want to experiment and have those ready in your Google Drive, that's great. If you want to wait until we're done and then see where I'm going with this, that's totally cool too. All right. So here's my top 5 and a junk folder. Okay. And then add a star to each of them. All right. So the way you do that is you right click on a folder, and then this little window pops up like that. And then you're going to click on add to starred. And then what's going to happen is they're going to have these little filled in stars next to the title of the folder. Okay. So let me give you an example here about that. Oh, and also I forgot to mention, you can change the color of the folders. Some people and most people that do this actually like coloring them by rainbow order, right? I like doing it more for it to stick out. So the really important ones I'll make red, because that sticks out to me. All right. Okay. So here's an example. And also had to give myself a note here. So now that you have your top 5, I recommend creating folders or subfolders inside of those, right? So and then naming them in some way. I like using this numbering convention so that when things are alphabetized, which is the default way of ordering things in your drive, they'll stay in that order, right? So 001 will be at the top, so I don't have to be looking for digging through things, okay? And then name the files a specific way also, okay? All right, so now here's a sample, and let's go into the actual thing. So I'm gonna change the screen that I'm sharing. So here's my starred items. So these are the things that I use the most, all right? And then let me show you my Google Drive. So just when I go to Google Drive, here's what it looks like. So up here are the things that I use the most, and I've been looking at this one often lately, and so that's what's up there. And then if I scroll down, these are my top things right now. So I tend to use the PD things a lot lately, and so that's my #1 priority. And then English stuff, because a lot of the teachers I mentor are mostly English teachers, and so I'm pulling things from there, and so on. And if you notice, not everything has a star, right? So this is why starring and this numbering convention helps. So if I go into my starred items, notice that it's different. So and some of these belong inside of other folders, but I use them so often that I just want really easy access. So this one, 000 observations. You know, as an induction mentor, I'm in my teachers' classrooms like all the time, so I want to write down notes. And so I have that folder there. It's easy access. It actually is inside of this other folder right here, the AVD, actually the AVD resources. So it's inside of that one. But because I starred it and put numbers in front of it, it's at the top of my starred. Another example would be this red distance learning folder. That belongs inside PD, but I've been using it so often that I put it in there. And notice there's one less 0 than the 0 there, and so that way it ends up higher in my priority in my starred folders. Okay, so there's that. There's my live example. Let's go back to the presentation here. All right. And then a further tip, and a lot of people, when I've shared this with them, they're like, oh yeah, I'll just do it that way, is to either bookmark your starred page or make that your start page, so that when you open up Google Chrome, you know, the tab or one of the tabs that opens up automatically is this starred, nicely organized folder, right? And so here's how to do that. And so quick step-by-step here, and you can go slowly, afterwards if you want to look at this. But you're going to copy the URL of the starred items. It's the same for everybody, so it's like that. Okay, so you're going to copy that. So keep that in your clipboard. So highlight that, copy it. Then you're going to go into your into the 3 dots that are at the top right-hand corner of your Chrome browser, and then you're going to click on Settings, right? And then you're going to scroll down to On Startup, and you're going to click on Add a New Page there, all right? And then you paste the URL. And so if you notice here, there's 3 things that I have. So every time I open up Google Chrome, these 3 things open up. One is my Symbaloo page, which is basically a page of bookmarks. My regular Google start page to search, and my starred Google Drive. Okay. So that has made life very easy, or much easier for me. Okay. I'm gonna just get back here really quick, and okay. All right, and then I have a note there to myself to open up the specific folder. So I wanted to show you one more little trick that you can do. So I'm gonna go back to my starred folder here. I'm gonna open up my PD folder. If I open that up, this is a nice little trick that I learned recently, is you can add emojis to the names of the folders, and it makes it puts it up high for you. And if you're really visual like I am, it just helps me find the folder I need. So, this is for like conference things, and then like conference receipts. Probably won't be doing much of those soon, but at the time when I was putting this together, I was like, oh yeah, this might be something that you might need to prioritize. And so how do you add emojis? There's a website here, so I'm going to share. Okay, here's my Google start page, and it's Emojipedia. So Emojipedia, and then you can type in a word like hug, and it gives you all the emojis for that, and you can plop it in there. Or you can use your phone, and you don't need to go to an Emojipedia. It's all already there to create it, okay? All right. So let's get back to the presentation here. All right. Okay, so that's tip number one. That's where we were going to spend most of the time, right? So now we're going to go through the rest of the tips pretty quickly so that if you want to start organizing, you can, all right? So number two is to add files to multiple folders. And I got this idea from that lady there. So if you were at my PD earlier this week, you know, I took a selfie with Eric Kurtz, this education blogger. Well, you know, I kind of, it's kind of funny because then I had run into this lady too, another education blogger, you know, just a little bit of starstruck with these people whose blogs I read, you know. You can see the fear in her eyes, like, why is this guy taking pictures with me, you know? She, you know, I asked permission, it was okay. But anyway, so I got the idea from this lady, Katie Bell is her name. And I didn't know you could do this. And it makes sense that files don't necessarily have to stay in one folder. You can put them in multiple folders without making copies of them or losing them in one place or another. And the way you do that is you click on the file you want to move, hit Shift Z while it's highlighted, and this other pop-up opens up, and you can go and add it to a different folder. So let me just show you how that works. So I'm going to go back to my drive. I'm going to open up. I'm just going to go to my starred items here. And here's this document. So let's say I want to put it in somewhere else. So I just clicked on it. All I did was click on it. Now I'm going to hit Shift Z, and that pops up. And now I can put it somewhere else. All right. So maybe I want to put it in my history folder, right? And click Add Here. And now it tells me that everyone who can see history can see this thing also. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. So it says move, so I click there. What happens is it stays in its original home, and it's also in the other that history folder. All right, that kind of blew my mind because I think a lot of times we want to put, or I at least want to keep things in multiple places. Because it makes sense to be multiple places. And really the whole idea of folders are a construct we've created to try to understand how to organize this. Really, it's just a bunch of zeros and ones, and you know, and folders are more like tags. So, all right, so there's that. So if you have something your department chair shared, you want to keep it in your department folder, but then you also want to put it in your Algebra 2 folder for Unit 3, you can do that without having to make a copy of it. Or you could just make a copy of it and put it there. All right. Okay. A couple more of these, and then we'll have some Q&A time. Okay. So one thing that came out of the survey was that my shared with me is a mess. Like I click into the shared with me area, and it's just all this stuff. Where'd it come from? You know. So my advice with that is don't mess with that mess. Just leave it there. You know, it's there. It's not going anywhere. Just leave it there. But if you want to also put it somewhere, you know, you want to be able to find that stuff. There's two ways to organize it. Okay. Yeah. So don't mess with it. Instead, do this. Use the add to my drive feature. So let's say Ben shares a file with me, right? And actually, let me open up the chat so I can see that in case so I don't miss anything before I continue here. All right. Okay. And sorry, I'm just getting organized here. Okay, so let's say Ben has shared this file with me and I see it and I shared with me, right? What I can do is I can right click on the file, right? And this little pop-up pops up, and then I can click on add shortcut to drive, and then I can organize it wherever it is that I want to put it. So maybe he shared with me something that belongs in my world history folder, and so I can right click, add shortcut to my drive, and then it tells me where to organize it. The second way to do that is to actually open up the file once it's been shared with me, and then click the add, it's called the add to my drive icon. So it's basically a little drive logo with a plus sign. Then click organize, and then organize it wherever it is you want to put it. Okay. Just know that anyone who can access the folder you put it in will be able to access that file also. And by access, I mean probably it's going to be view only. Whatever access you've given to the other people in that folder, they will have that access with that. Okay. If you know, and then there's certain cases where it's like private or privately owned and you can only view, then you can't. You know, you might not be able to share it, but you can put it in your drive in a specific folder. Okay. All right. Okay. And then number 5. So tip number 5. So the last tip here. Really, when I've in preparation for this, I actually reached out to some of these blogger people, like, hey, what can I give to, you know? And they're every time, all of them, their number one piece of advice is like, why even organize it? But here's how to organize. You know, and a lot of the things that I shared with you are the things that they suggested too, and that I use. But you know, their argument was, and I feel like that's somewhat, is that, you know what, it almost doesn't even matter. So if your Google Drive is overwhelmingly messy right now, and you're like, I don't know if I can organize all this stuff, it's really okay, because you can find anything in there. One of the questions that came up a lot in the survey was, how do I delete, you know, from the blank? I would say there's no need to delete anything in your Google Drive, at least not the district one, because we have unlimited storage. So you might as well just leave it there, because who knows, you might need that you know, tutorial on how to use you know, I don't know, how to access Blockbuster Video or something sometime in the future. But all right, so here's why the search feature is so useful. So you can search 9 different ways for things in your Google Drive. The default is just, you know, search in the search bar at the top of your drive, but you can look for these specific filters, right? So the biggest one is file. All right. So you can click on file, or type rather, and then select specific what type of file you want to find. All right. Oh, and then I see a question here. It says there are hundreds of documents that students have done. Is there a way to delete them as a bulk rather than one? Yes, and I'll show you in the Q&A. I think that was one of the questions that was posted in the survey, quite a bit actually. So I'll show you how to do that. Okay. But so if you need to find something, one way to do it is to click type and then say what type of file. So if you know that it's a presentation, you can click that. If you know that it's a zip drive, you know, or a shortcut that you've made, then there it is. Okay, and then you can search by the person who owns it, the location as far as where it is. You can even click on a folder, right click on a folder, and then there's a search option for the folder. So you know that it's in your English 10 folder somewhere. So you can right click on that and then search only in there, and you can find it that way. But the data was modified. And this is like the biggest thing is like, has the words. So you can click in, so it's only going to search for things that has this word or these words. All right, so it can search everything in your Google Doc and it'll look for those words in there. Or if it's shared with me, or if it's something that you've added comments to, you can search by that comment. All right. The last one, and I think this is like overkill. You don't necessarily need this, but you can search in your Omnibox. Omnibox is what Google calls the address bar. So you can program your address bar so that you can find things in your drive. So it'll search the internet and your drive also, if you want. So here's a quick tutorial on how to do that. So you just follow these directions and follow this GIF, and it'll get you there. But like I said, that's like real overkill for that. But anyway, you have those directions and a link to how to do it step by step also. All right. Okay, but I think the most convenient way to search, for me at least, is this. In the address bar, type in the product.google.com. So if I know that I'm looking for a presentation that I've been working on recently, I can just type in slides.google.com. And all the slides that I've been working on recently, or that I've accessed recently, will pop up in order, regardless of what folder I have in. Same thing with docs and sheets. And I tend to not use sheets that often. So if I ever need to go find a spreadsheet, that's how I do it, because I so rarely use them. There might be 3 or 4 that I use all the time, and I can easily find them that way. All right. Okay, so let me address some of the questions that came up a lot. There's about 4 or 5 of them, and then I'll open it up to questions if there still are questions. So one is, how do I delete things, right? And do that in bulk too, right? So, okay, so here's one. Again, you don't have to delete things if you don't want, but if you do, here's how to do it. And one of the reasons why is because of the Google Classroom stuff that gets shared with me. Well, let me show you a couple of things. So I'm going to go into my drive here. All right, so you should be seeing my drive, and I'm going to go ahead and open up my English folder and AP stuff. Okay, so okay, good. So here's a bunch of files. Let's say I don't need all these files anymore. So I can click this one, right? Let's say I just want to delete that one. I can click that and hit the remove button right there. All right. But let's say I need to delete all of these, but not this one, the PDF, right? And so I can just select the first one, and I want to delete them all the way through drafts, but not this one PDF. So I can hit Shift and then click on that, and I have all these highlighted, but I don't want to delete that one. I can hold down Control, the Control key, and click on that, and it deselects that one. And now I can delete all that or remove all that. So that's how you delete things in bulk. And then the question about it being in your Google Classroom. So whether you know it or not, you have a Google Classroom folder. I didn't change. I just made mine purple so I can find it easily, like on just the site view. And I know that I didn't make it because it's not in all caps. Another reason why I like making things in all caps, because I know that if it's not, probably wasn't me who created it. If you open that up, every Google Classroom you've ever had is listed there in alphabetical order, right? So I've been pretty busy in Google Classroom, as you can see, all right? Within each of those folders are folders for each assignment you've ever put in there, and including the templates, right? And within each assignment, let me see if I This is really old, but yeah, okay. Within each assignment is a copy of the assignment for each student, right? So, you know, I would just leave it there. I don't see a need to delete it. Here's what I think the problem is with that is that in Google Classroom, you need to make sure you return it, okay? So when students turn in an assignment, what they essentially are doing is they are giving you ownership of that document. It's the digital or the virtual equivalent of them completing their worksheet and then putting it in your basket, right? Once it's in your basket, they can no longer edit it because it's your property now, right? And so you know, so think of that as like, so if you don't return your papers, your physical papers, there's these giant stacks on your desk, right? So to clean that up, you can either throw it away or just return it. So I would recommend you just return it to your students digitally after you've graded it or after it's been turned in. You don't need it anymore, just return it. And that's a good thing to kind of take a look at in your Google Classrooms as, you know, the year ends. Just return everything, you know, whether it's graded or not, just return it, right? Then it gets rid of the clutter for you, but you can still access it because it was an assignment in Google Classroom, which is kind of nice, right? And it's already organized for you in your drive, in the classroom folder, in the specific class, in the specific assignment. All right. Okay, and let me open up the chat one more time to make sure I'm paying attention to that. And I'm going to go back to our presentation, and I'm going to present the presentation. Okay. All right, and see another question. Oh, okay. So the question was answered. All right. Okay, one more thing here, or a couple of more questions that came out. Okay, so what about things in Google Classroom? Well, it's already sorted for you. No need to delete anything. Okay. The other question was, oh, this one, this was a good one because it made me think a little bit. And I was like, oh, well, what would I do here in this situation? So adding files to shared drives and then setting up shared folders to use with students on Canvas instead of Google Classroom. Should I create the folder or just share it with the students is how I understand this. So a couple of things. There's one option in your Google Drive where you can, well, let me just kind of show you the answers here. And I see your question, Carolyn. I'll get to that right after this one, okay? So here's what I would do to address this Canvas issue. So I would create a class folder. So I wouldn't do that in a shared drive, just a folder. So in my drive, create, you know, English 10, and then whatever subfolders would be necessary, right? And then the files, and I would keep them in a numbered convention, like, or a named convention that makes sense. So they're in the order that you want as the teacher, okay? Then take the link to share the folder, like the view only option for that folder, and share that in Canvas for students. So then they can access all that stuff. The problem there, though, and I think this is where this is getting at, is that the students don't have their own copy of it, right? And so here's what I would do instead then. Instead of adding files, so like if I want all the students to have this one worksheet, let's say, and it's a Google Doc, and I want them to make their own copy, but you know, that's one extra step, and I don't want to, you know, rather than sharing the file, share the link to that file with the student and make one quick change. And let me show you what that is. So I'm going to go into my starred items here, and I'm going to open up. All right, so let's say it's this file. It's a syllabus. So that's one of my syllabuses, and I want my students to be able to edit it, right? So I'm going to right click on it, I get these options and I get this shareable link. So I'm going to click that. And now I have, this. So, here's the link. So I'm going to copy the link. And now I'm going to post it in the Omnibox, right? So you probably can't see that, right? And so let me go back here. I'm going to share this and open up. It shows you the tab. Well, anyway, okay. So I'm gonna type it in here. Okay. So I'm gonna paste it. Oh, but you can't see the paste. So let me do this instead. I'm gonna stop sharing. This has been a real lifesaver, actually. So, all right. So I'm just presenting my whole screen here. Okay. So here's the address bar, right? So what I copied was the link to that file. I'm going to hit paste. So I pasted it in there. And then there's this like big old code there. See where it says edit? I'm going to change that to copy. Copy, right? And then I can copy that. And I'm going to share that with my students, right? If I go there, it forces you to make a copy of that document. All right, so if I'm using Canvas and I want students to have their own copy of each of those, I would share the link with the copy code and not necessarily the document itself, all right? Or if I can get a little snarky, I would just use Google Classroom instead. But yeah, that's just me. It's a personal preference. All right, so there's that. Create a force edit link for, okay, so then there's this question. So I taught Apex last year and ran into the issue of having a bunch of student assignments, etc., because I had them share it with me. Let me stop you right there. Never have students share things with you. It creates a mess. That's one of the reasons Google Classroom was made, was so that you can assign it in Google Classroom and it doesn't clutter things up. All right, so part of the problem I imagine here is that they probably didn't want to, or this teacher probably didn't want to share it with multiple students, and and create multiple assignments for each student. Well, you can do that in just a manner of like a couple of clicks, and you can send it to all your classes. So create the assignment one time and then send it to all of your classes, some of your classes, one of your classes, all of your students, some of your students, right? So Ben Jefferson and I did a webinar last week on Google Classroom, and we addressed that. So if you want to go back to the archive of the class, you can watch those, and we'll show you how to do that in that. Okay, a couple more questions here. Any way to easily sort through and the untitled docs and forms and sheets? And this is a great question. Unfortunately, no, there's not a great way. I would say from now on, make sure you give it a name. When you create it, give it a name. And the naming convention, especially, come up with a naming convention that works for you. Okay. How do I delete multiple things at one time? All right. And that was the question that somebody asked for me to go over again. So here's what you do. You click, hold down Shift, and then just click away, and use Control and click to skip the file. So let me show you how to do that one more time. All right. So start with me, hit done there, and there's something that has lots of files in it. I'm just gonna go in there, and I know this has lots of files in it. And it's loading. Okay, so I want to delete multiple things. I'm going to click, hold down Shift, click, click. Oh, but I want to delete all of these. I'm going to go click. It selects all of them. Oh no, but I didn't want to select AP Lit Comp Summer 2013, this PDF. I'm going to hold down Control and click on that, and it deselects that. And then I can just go to remove, and it deletes all of those. All right. Okay. All right, go back to presentation here, and there's a question. And David, you're so funny. Oh, shucks, thanks. That was in there too. What's the best way to organize the Google Sheets that results from Google Forms and Google Classrooms? Great. I love this question because this is something that like messes with my mind too. So best way to organize the sheets. Here, you put them in folders for one, if you already have them. And from now on, create that form in a folder. That sheet will automatically end up in that folder too, right next to it. All right. So really, it's from the folder perspective. So you know, think of that was why the number one thing that I had to do was create these folders, and then within those folders create the folders. But if you just have your top 5 folders, you might know that the Google form you created for this one thing came for English 10. So you know you can at least find it that way. Okay. All right. The question was, you know, if deleting students' old work and class files is illegal, and it's like I hope not, because you know I never did this, but I might as well have had students rather turn in their papers on my little basket, just turn it into the waste basket, you know. Hopefully they never saw that, but yeah, I hope not. Yeah. So I would say if you don't necessarily want to get rid of it, that's why you have this archive or this junk folder. So you know that if you ever need to find something that you're like, that wasn't important to me, it's probably in that junk folder. And if you just leave it in your drive, there's an easy way to search for them. You know, 9 different ways to search for those things. Right? Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy the link to the feedback form so you can get paid, and put it into the chat box here. And you can go ahead and click away in there and start signing out. And if you have any specific questions that I haven't addressed, you can go ahead and unmute yourself right now and ask away, and we'll deal with those questions. And if you want to stick around, I will stick around to answer any questions you might have.
David, there was a question earlier that I wasn't sure how to answer in regards to when you're adding files to multiple folders. When you edit one of those documents in one folder, does it change it in the other folder? Like, does it automatically change both, or is it its own copy?
No, it automatically changes both, because you're not creating a different file. You're just telling it to live in 2 files at the same time. So really, it's more like adding a tag to it, because that's how folders work in Google Drive. It's just easier for our minds to wrap around a folder and things being put in a folder in a filing cabinet. But I guess it's just a bunch of zeros and ones, so it doesn't necessarily look like that in virtual life. So yeah, it'll change it both ways. So if you don't want that the one version to be changed, just make a copy and put it in the other place. Yeah, great question.
David, I still can't get I figured out how to delete all the things like you showed me holding down the shift. But when I go over with just the control to try to not delete, I must be doing something wrong, because it just clears everything off that
okay.
Can you show me how to do that? I'm so sorry.
Sure.
The whole reason why I took the class was to learn how to do this one thing. So I want to learn how to do it, because I have thousands of student work that I need to get rid of.
Okay. So no, it's fine. Okay, so right here, if I want to delete these 3, I can hold down. Okay, so I can click one thing.
Okay.
Oh, are you on a Mac by any chance?
No, I'm on a school the school laptop.
Is it an Apple computer? No, it wouldn't be. If not, if it's.
I would think so. It's just a school. Yeah, the school laptop.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, they don't mess with Apple, I guess. So, because yeah, I think it might be different on an Apple computer. But let's say you want to delete these 3 files.
Okay.
Select one, so it should be highlighted.
Right.
Hold down Shift.
I did that.
And then click here.
I did
and
that.
now you should have 3 things, right?
Okay.
Okay. So if I want to get rid of that middle one, I'm going to hold down Control and click only on the one I want to get rid of.
Okay, I'll try it again. Let's see.
And if that doesn't work,
if you want to, okay, cool. I got it.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. The other way to deal with it too is like I can just hold down Control and then click on the files that I want to delete, and it'll automatically skip the ones I don't. But you have to hold down Control.
Okay, and then how do I?
So after you do that, so up at the top here is this little trash can symbol.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Up at the top. Once I have those highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Yeah.
I have a question as well. I've been added to observe Google Classrooms. I'm not the teacher for. Is there a way to prevent student work from being added to my drive automatically in that instance, since I'm not the one actually grading it?
No, actually, because you're technically a teacher in there. But it should just be added to your shared with me, right? That's where it's all going? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's where it goes, as well as into the classroom folders.
Yeah.
That are automatically generated.
Yeah. No. And I would say, like, again, my, advice about the shared with me, just leave it alone. Like, never even go in there. Because, unless someone has shared something with you, like directly, that you need to find.
Right.
But otherwise, that it's meant to be this, like, abyss where all the junk is anyway. Yeah.
And when you add to your drive something that has been shared to you, any updates made on that live document would still be reflected within your drive, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Unless you made a copy of it, and so that copy isn't being edited. So yeah.
Right. Okay.
All right. Any other questions there?
David, I spend a lot of time searching for files, but it's really annoying when everything from the district pops up. Is there any way when I'm searching that I can specifically just search from my drive instead of seeing everything that everyone makes in the district?
Yeah. So let's say you want to search. I'm just going to go into my drive. So let's say you're in my drive and you want to find something very specific. You click on advanced search, and instead of having the owner be anyone, you can say owned by me, and then search here, and then you might say like syllabus. Oh wait, I didn't have the space there. So now the only things that pop up here are syllabi that I own.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.